Hi, so I just wanted to make a video because recently this topic of conversation has come up quite a lot lately. And I guess, wanted to talk about my opinions on it. And if there's anyone else out there that's, a girl in her 20s or who is struggling romantically with, men and just finding herself in bad situations. I just I just thought that it would be helpful because I think I've had a fair bit of experience, good and bad, as I'm sure everyone has. And I just kind of wanted to go through like the warning signs as well of what to look out for when you meet someone new and sort of like the red flags, and maybe some of the green flags too. I just think it's good to keep a mental checklist of these things so that when it does come up, inevitably you will know, you'll be able to be like, oh, he did that or he said that. And you'll just be able to spot the signs of, somebody who probably isn't right for you. And I probably want to say that this goes both ways. Like, obviously, women can be problematic too, and but this is mainly for the men because that's just my experience. Okay, so I would say the first thing is if a guy talks about his ex girlfriend. I mean, the exes obviously come up, and I personally think it's normal to talk freely. I just think that what he says is really important, and you have to pay attention to how he speaks about his ex girlfriends because girls don't really think about this, but that could be you one day. And you have to think about, like, if this person speaks about his ex girlfriends negatively, then there is a high chance that he will be speaking about you in the same way. So you shouldn't like think that you're special and different because that's just not realistic. And it's really a red flag if somebody is very negative about their ex. I mean, of course, some people can have bad experiences, but I just think it's a really big sign of maturity if a man can, say if he can be mature about it and positive and just a simple didn't work out, that person is lovely. I also think that being able to be friends with your exes is a sign of maturity. I know that a lot of girls don't like it, but I don't think it's that big of a deal personally, as long as there's no backsliding or toxicity, and you can be friends with an ex partner. What's the next one? I think also if a man who mentions money talks about how much things cost him, talking about, trying to bring up the fact that he flies private or first class only, I think is a big red flag. I don't think that you should. Somebody who leads with their money is just trying to hook you in. Just throwing the hook in and reeling you in with the money talk, and it's just such a red flag. It shouldn't matter, how much money he has or how much he recently paid for something. So that is another major red flag, just like trying to indicate to you how wealthy he is. Um, so I think it's rude anyway to talk about money. I think, especially if you don't know each other that well, it's just not good. Um, and then I would say the next one is just like I think little things. Like does he ask you questions about yourself? Um, does he want to like know more about you and what you like, or is he just sort of objectifying you the entire time, just like sitting there and asking you how much you weigh or how skinny you are, or the fact that his hand can wrap around your wrist, or I don't know, like just really pointing out about your physical. I think a compliment here and there is there's absolutely nothing wrong, that's great, it makes you feel good, but I think definitely you know sort of scanning you and comments about your body or your hair or something, or that for me is very like, I mean, I get it, we all want to feel attracted to, and we want to know that the person in front of us wants us, but I feel like that is just, it's just borderline predatory, I think. um and then I think, leading on from that, is just anything sort of like overly sexual. Like, I don't think that on a first date you should talk about sex. I don't think, I just think it's quite rude. And especially if you're a young girl in her 20s, and the man is a couple of years older than you, or maybe even 10 years older than you, I think that like it's just already like, but if he's bringing up inappropriate sexual things, I just think that you should cut off the conversation, and if you possibly can, the date. Now, I don't mean to be super conservative, like, it is fine to talk about sex, but I do think as well, there's a time and a place for it, and you don't want to be on a first date and it's just a bad idea. It's just a bad idea, because once that conversation is opened, you know, I think, they could get the wrong idea, or it could just go wrong very quickly from there. Um, I feel like this next one is quite controversial because people have like a lot of different opinions on this, and some people think it's super like old fashioned, but I do think that um, if he doesn't like make the effort to hold on. I think if he like doesn't make the effort to open the door for you, if he doesn't walk, if he walks in front of you, if he lets you walk on the side of the road where the cars are, these things are very small, but it's the gesture, it's just the thoughtfulness, I think, is like very important and shows you what sort of man that person is. I think it's really important, if he pulls your chair out for you, if he stands up when you stand. And I get it, like a lot of people are gonna say that it's super old fashioned, but that's my opinion. And it's okay to disagree, and not all girls like the same thing, and that's okay. But for me personally, I have found that the men who do these things versus the ones who don't are very different, and I've had very different experiences with them. So it could just be pattern recognition, but I definitely think that it makes a difference in the person that you're dating and your experience with them. I also think somebody who is angry, somebody who seems very, not passionate, but just very strong feelings about certain things, I think you should definitely steer clear of. A man who is angry is not somebody you should be anywhere near. You know, it could be anything. It could be, you can kind of tell, you can tell when a man has like lingering resentment against a certain situation. It could be, again, the ex who cheated on him and it made him really angry. You know, it's very, you can sort of tell, you know. And I think it's also worth asking a man if he has a lot of female friends, because I think that can also tell you a lot about him, because if he doesn't think he can have friends, and if he thinks it's wrong for his girlfriend to have male friends, and that he isn't interested in having female friends, you know, that for me is sort of like, it's just not true. You know, it's just not true. And that's, you know, what you have to be careful, because a lot of people don't tell the truth about who they are when you first meet them. But if you look closely enough, and if you really analyze the things that they're saying and the way that they're acting, and also their body language, it will tell you a lot about the person sitting in front of you. So I just think it just doesn't make any sense for half of the population is male, like for you to expect your girlfriend not to have any male friends is just like, it just doesn't make any sense. And it's just very like, I didn't realize that we lived in Afghanistan where men and women have to be segregated. You know, it's just ridiculous. And actually building on that comes another one, is when you have his Instagram and all of a sudden you've got a lot of girls popping up on your suggested, and he's just got 500 girls that he's friends with, you know. And if he's in person, you know, against this sort of thing with being friends with girls, and that it's he can only be friends with women that he's attracted to, then, you know, that's just like a huge red flag. So it's just definitely someone you want to stay away from. And it's also always worth like checking his following on Instagram, seeing how many girls he follows, and also the type of girls that he follows can be quite important. You know, if he is following a certain archetype of woman and you don't necessarily fit into that, you know, that raises a lot of questions, because you don't want to be with somebody who has a fetish for something and only takes another sort of woman seriously. I think a lot of girls can probably relate to this as well. And, you know, you just don't want to be with someone like that. And it's also quite awful. I just think it's quite disrespectful as well to the girls that he fetishizes, because they don't deserve to be a fetish, and you don't deserve to be potentially cheated on with anyone, really. So it's just not fair for anyone, and it's just means that they've just got some issues that they need to sort out, or they're just not being honest with themselves and what they want. So I don't want this to be a super long video, so I'm gonna cut it off here, but I just thought I'd share some things about like red flags, and if you are dating and any of these things have come up for you, or you've experienced these, you know, I hope that this can be helpful for any future dates that you have, and I may make another video and elaborate, and maybe give some more points if anybody wants to hear them. Thanks.